I have worked for the probate court system, which is a branch of the court system that oversees estate cases, situations where there's a will that's in dispute by the remaining family members or a trust that's in dispute, also adoption matters, and power of attorney, conservatorship, and guardianship matters. And conservatorship and guardianship matters are very serious in the sense that they give someone else control over another human being's financial resources and decision making. A guardianship, even more broad decision making power, where their person lives. They make decisions about how their finances are spent, a high level of control over another human being. So these cases are very serious and very delicate and require a lot of compassion. And unfortunately, when there is someone who is struggling with a mental health condition or an incapacitating illness, it's very easy to stigmatize and label them as being incapacitated and that their input holds very little weight, their statements don't have a lot of credibility. And once someone is entered into that world, they never really escape. It changes the course and direction of their life forever, and it changes how they're listened to and heard for the remainder of their life. And it's so important to show an added measure of compassion to those who do have legitimate mental health issues and medical issues that do incapacitate them, and those that are honorable, that seek to have guardianship or oversight over them, that are doing so for good reason. That's a wonderful thing. But it takes such strong discretion to really identify what is the intent of someone who is taking on the large responsibility of handling someone's decision-making ability and their resources. Is there good intent behind it? What do they have to gain? It's really important to look at that. And what are the resources that are at stake that this person that's wanting control over another human being, what could be gained for them? And one of the most heartbreaking things working in the probate court is those who had guardianships or conservatorships would often come in regularly pleading for help, saying things like, my guardian isn't allotting me enough money to even meet my basic needs. I don't have enough food. I'm in unsafe housing. I've not seen or heard from them for months. They don't respond to my calls. And I do believe a lot of them had very legitimate concerns and were being abused within those conservatorships and guardianships. And they could petition for a hearing and request to be released or have that modified. And unfortunately, because of the stigma associated with those who have been branded as having a mental health issue or having a health condition that prohibits them from making their own decisions, what would happen is those hearings would just be kind of part of the logistical requirement. They were treated essentially as a nuisance, and very rarely would a lot of weight be given to those pleading for their freedom from the bondage of another person controlling their life. And there wasn't a lot of recourse for them. They could file repetitive petitions asking for these hearings and asking for change. But what would happen is the louder they got and the more they sought help, the more they were in fact treated as a nuisance and the less and less they were listened to. So those who seek guardianship or conservatorship over another human being for ill intent, to not properly care for the person or to falsely accuse a person of even needing those services, to me, are some of the most dangerous, diabolical criminals out there, because they've now branded someone, totally stolen their voice. For the rest of their life, they will be labeled in a certain manner, and that person is stuck. And I just really want to bring to light that it is so inappropriate to go around and say, oh, that person's crazy. Don't call people crazy. Only crazy people call people crazy. Have compassion and understand, yes, people do struggle with legitimate substance issues, mental health issues, medical conditions that are so depleting that they can't make decisions for themselves. But there are many incidents where someone is perfectly fine, perfectly capable, and there are ill-intended, cruel and wicked people seeking to control and steal their resources, seeking for revenge to do harm to that person, that are really poor intended in what they do. And so often a smear campaign, an attack on the character of these individuals will ensue. They'll get people to make statements and testify and say things about the person that really aren't true or are exaggerated or blown out of proportion. Sometimes they'll even pay people to make false statements in order for them to obtain these false roles of control over another human being. And, there's no honor among thieves, so anyone involved in this situation is wise to report it before they get reported on. But I just think it's so important, and so much change is needed to bring awareness to the fact that everyone's voice should have equal weight. And often when I've worked with those that are unhoused, the homeless population, the reason they don't want help is they don't want to enter this stigmatic system. They don't want to be labeled and branded and forced on medications and have the court system and strangers or guardians take control of their decisions, where they live, every aspect of their life. And it's easier for them to maintain their personal freedom and live in the streets and sometimes go hungry and be in danger than to risk being controlled by another human being that may just be more dangerous. So I'm a huge advocate for change in the system. I'm an advocate for showing compassion to those that are being labeled as having a mental illness or a substance abuse disorder, because people change, people heal, and people can be falsely framed in those situations. So I would just encourage everyone to remove the word crazy from your vocabulary. It's a cruel word that has no place in pointing the finger and labeling another human being, one of God's children. Each of us are perfectly imperfect in our own ways and deserve to be heard and listened to and valued.